Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, aka Daddy Dreidels. Week 11 has come and gone, which means we are down to the last 3 weeks of the regular season. And as the trade deadline approaches, we've already seen teams making moves, while others are still trying to figure out if they are buyers or sellers. There was also a lot of movement in the standings after this week's action, and I've got it all for you right here. But as always, we start the recap off with a word from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Del Griffith Shower Curtain Rings. Made with helium so they're much lighter, Del Griffith runs rings around the competition. Take a plane, train, or an automobile and call Del Griffith for all your shower curtain ring needs. We'll kick off this week's recap with our hottest team, Brett, taking on Kyle, who was looking for his second win in a row. And, thankfully for all of us, Kyle was able to end Brett's winning streak with a 160.05 to 128.25 win. Kyle was led by Captain Justin Herbert with 52.95 points, and he also got 32.5 from Jalen Warren. Brett was led by Keenan Allen with 32.6 points, and he also got 20.1 points from Jared Goff. However, Brett's march toward the playoffs took a pause this week with this loss. He still sits at 7-4, solely in second place, and just one game back of first. He will try to get that game back next week when he takes on Josh. Meanwhile, Kyle improves to 6-5 with his win and is currently in a playoff spot but tied with half the league record-wise. Kyle will look to gain some separation in Week 12 when he faces off against Zach. Speaking of Zach, he lost a tough one to Josh this week, falling 141.98 to 136.9 to Kareem Pies. Josh was led by Tank Dell with 37.9 points, but it was Captain Sam Howell and his 33.38 points that got Josh the win. Zach actually outscored Josh before the captain bonus was added, but I digress. Zach was led by Lamar Jackson with 30.6 points, and he also got 21.5 from Jahmyr Gibbs. However, Zach falls to 3-8 with his heartbreaker and all but secures a place in the consolation bracket. He will look to regroup next week when he takes on Kyle. Meanwhile, Josh improves to 6-5 with his win and currently holds the final playoff spot based on points scored. Josh will try to create some breathing room in the standings in Week 12 when he faces Brett in a crucial matchup for both teams. In another must-win game, Swans was able to notch his third straight victory, this time beating George 145.15 to 113.95. Swans was led by Calvin Ridley with 36.1 points, and he also got 32.25 from Josh Allen. George's team was led by Will Levis with 21.1 points, and George also got 20.6 points from Odell Beckham Jr. However, George falls to 3-8 with the loss, tied with Zach for last place. George will try to get back on track next week when he takes on Cheese. Meanwhile, Swans improves to 6-5, joining the pack but currently sitting in the 8-seed bubble. He will try to pop that bubble and get into a playoff spot next week when he and I face off. As for my team, I was able to get my second win in a row this week, thanks to a 175.2 to 127.25 win over Big John. Tyreek Hill led the way for my team with 35.6 points, and I also got 26.7 points from Captain David Montgomery. I was also able to win $20 for having the highest scoring team of the week. Big John was led by Saquon Barkley with 30 points, but ultimately Big John falls back to 6-5 with this loss. He will try to get back in the win column next week when he takes on Jed. Meanwhile, I improved to 8-3 on the season and reclaim sole possession of first place. I will try to hang on to that top spot next week when Swans and I face off. Another team looking to grab the top spot this week was Armenti, who faced off against Cheese in another must-win game for both teams. And, like Zach, Armenti was the victim of the captain's bonus as he falls to Cheese 169.35 to 168.05. Cheese was led by Captain Brandon Ayuk, who led all players in Week 11 with 53.4 points. Cheese also got 22.65 points from Patrick Mahomes on Monday night, and another 22 from the Bills' D on Sunday. Armenti was led by Brock Purdy with 43.05 points, and would have won $10 for having the highest scoring player if not for the same captain's bonus that cost him a win this week. However, Armenti did win $10 for having the week's highest scoring kicker, with Tyler Bass scoring 16 points. With both teams now at 6-5, the final stretch will be more important than ever for both Armenti and Cheese. Armenti will play the first of his 3 regular season final games against PJ, while Cheese will try to get closer to the playoffs in Week 12 when he takes on George. Our final matchup of the week featured PJ taking on Jed, as both teams look to try to stay in the playoff hunt. And when the dust settled, we had our third game of the week where the captain's bonus decided the matchup, as Jed edged PJ 143.45 to 139.88. Jed's team was led by Captain CJ Stroud with 44.55 points, and he also got 21 points from Gus Edwards. PJ was led by Captain Dak Prescott with 33.08 points, and he also got 25.2 points from Devontae Adams. However, PJ falls to 5-6 with this loss and drops out of a playoff spot for the moment. However, he is only one game back of third place record-wise, and he will try to make up that game next week against Armenti. Meanwhile, Jed is now 4-7 after his third win in 4 weeks, and will try to get himself back into a playoff spot next week when he takes on Big John. Here are the Team Daddy standings after Week 11. I am back in sole possession of first place after my win this week, and Brett sits solely in second after his loss. After that, we have 6 teams tied for 3rd through 8th, all at 6 and 5. Seeded by points scored, we have Cheese, Kyle, Armenti, Big John, Josh, and Swans, who is currently in the bubble of not being in playoffs, but also not being in the consolation bracket. Next up, we have PJ in 9th at 5-6, followed by Jed in 10th at 4-7. Finally, we have Zach in 11th and George in last, both sitting at 3-8. As Thanksgiving approaches, I would like to take this opportunity to say how thankful I am to know all of you. Yes, we talk shit about each other during the football season, and sometimes beyond, but at the end of the day, this is a brotherhood that I am so thankful to be a part of. On a football note, please remember that draft pick trading ends Wednesday at midnight, and the deadline for player trades is this Monday. And, as always, don't forget to get your captain picks into PJ before you stuff your faces, because football kicks off at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Wishing all of you and your families a very happy, healthy, and a safe Thanksgiving. Thank you as always for watching. This has been your Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, and I will see you next time. L'chaim, motherfuckers!